All right, so I'm here with Katy Francis, a member of the Rotary Club. Do you want to tell me more about yourself and what the Rotary Club is?
Sure. Well, more about myself. Well, I born and bred in New Milford. My family's been here for a long time. I have retired a couple times, but I now work for United Way of Western and Coastal Connecticut. You might know us from doing the back to school and Thanksgiving turkeys and food programs. And I became a Rotarian in 1988 in Danbury. Then I moved, and when I moved back to New Milford, I joined the New Milford Rotary Club, which is great because in 1988 they had just allowed women, and I was the third one to join the Danbury Club. So what a Rotary Club is, I would call it a social service club, which is sort of an old term, but it means that we are social in that we have lunch and we do things with our spousal units if we want to, but we're really service. The Rotary motto is service above self. And it means that we raise funds to help out other organizations in town. We work to do projects, Children's Center, we went there one time, washed windows and did some painting. We have our fundraisers are probably well known, our duck race, the Great Housatonic Duck Race. And we also have our dough booth, which during fair days, you would know that because, of course, it was great dough. And we still have the dough booth, and we do it, for instance, like at Riverfest and other places. So that's what Rotary is about, and it's been around quite a while. What I do in the New Milford Rotary now, I'm a past president, and I've held a secretarial job, and I pretty much am a communications for the club. So I send out emails, I put things in the paper about what we do, I take the photographs when we have a program. And the other thing I do under that is I'm part of the scholarship committee. And as you know, Bryce, because you were one of the recipients of our scholarships. And so I enjoy that. And I see you ask, would you like to know about the application?
Yeah, so as someone who has gone through the whole application, was a scholarship applicant and winner, one of the portions of this video that we want to focus on was a lot of students are worried about scholarships and whether or not they're going to get them, so they don't even apply. And we want a kind of an insight on what kind of goes on in the scholarship application. You're someone that's worked with that.
Okay.
Like, what's a good scholarship applicant to you?
Well, I'd say for the Rotary, we tend to target students who have done volunteer work, since we are that type of organization. What we really look for is probably what a lot of basic things that people who give scholarships look for: a well-rounded student, someone whose grades are good. They don't have to be in the top 2 or anything, always. I mean, it's nice, but someone who can handle keeping the grades up, have some extracurricular activities, maybe sports, and also engage in the community. And that can be in big and small ways, but it just shows us that you are aware that you are part of a community larger than yourself and you want to help. And we also then, based on that, we also look for students who are perhaps going to a non-traditional college, or maybe they're going to a trade school, like they want to become a carpenter, an electrician. We try to, the number of scholarships we give out really depends on how much funds we're able to raise, really, So if, let's just say we were giving out 6 scholarships, or 8 in your case when you were there. So we try to find a couple of those to do the same amount of the scholarship as everybody else, but that we encourage the kids to apply. So as you said, there are students who don't apply, and that is a puzzling thing to me, because our application is, I brought it along so you could take a look at it. It asks basically, it's 2 pages. You see, it's got a lot of lines on it. So it's basic information like what type of activity did you do for your activity? If you worked, what did you do? How many hours? Did you just volunteer at church camp for 4 days? Or do you have a part-time job where you go someplace and actually do it? Or are you a scout going for your Eagle Scout, right? Or are you, there's another example. We have Theater Works in town, and we had a couple of applicants, and what they volunteered for was to help out at Theater Works, clearly because, they try to keep the tickets inexpensive.
Yep.
So the application isn't really hard at all, and we ask that you attach your most recent grade sheet that you all get, which tells us where your standing is in the class, what your GPA is. And we can also see there the last year or so, but if we wanted to, if someone looked like maybe it was a bad time, we all have bad times, I can ask the secretary at the high school and she'll give me the GPA over 4 years, right? So it gives me a better picture. And we make it easy. They have that system in the high school. I don't remember.
The system,
Not Nuvance. It's got a funny name. And you can apply in there, right? So we're there. Plus, you can email it directly to Rotary. We have an email just for that, and it's pretty simple. As our cover letter says, we look favorably on students who have excelled in the area of community volunteer activities, as well as academic achievement and involvement in extracurricular activities. So it's easy to do. I think when I was in school, we didn't have all the electronic stuff, so you really had to type it up. But I think it's easy. You asked me what makes a good applicant. Well, a good applicant reads what we ask for when it says, please type.
Yep.
Because handwriting's really hard and they don't.
Yep.
Or we ask specific questions and they just ignore them. That isn't a good applicant. There's a reason that we ask it. So we have a grading system for it. We assign a value to your extracurricular, your academics, about your volunteering, how many kids are in your family? I mean, that's another thing we ask on here. Because if your family has 3 kids, you're going to college one year, the other one the next year, and the next year. We look at that and think, well, that's a hefty amount there. So let's take a look at this and see. And I guess we just try to get to know the applicant. I'm not sure if in the past they brought the applicants in. But we did discuss that, and the issue there is, as you all know, being school kids yourself, it's really difficult in your senior year. You got a lot going on. It's really difficult to find time to have an interview because hopefully you're applying for as many scholarships as you can fit on, and so we tend to look at it that way. I think I would probably ask you and some other recipients if you think it would be better. What would you think?
I had one interview for one of my scholarships for the JPS scholarship, and it was nerve-wracking for some people, which makes it more difficult for them to do it. And with what your group tries to do, and you try to find very well-rounded people that are very active in the community, it's definitely difficult to find time for people to make that time in their schedule to do an interview with all the people that you have to deal with and all of your applicants.
Yes, see, absolutely, because it's just we want you to be busy helping, along with your homework and everything else in your family. But then it just makes it that much harder. And I think that pretty much if you answer all the questions, another thing that we ask is that we get a couple letters of recommendation. And what we ask is that they not be from a teacher. Now, the reason for that is that teachers are very busy, especially at the end of a year. You know that. And teachers that are in the senior level or junior, senior AP, they're really busy. And asking a teacher to really sit down for a minute for all the kids that do applications is asking a lot. So it's not that we don't think that they could give us valuable insight, and sometimes we do get letters from teachers, but the fact how you've done, and some, as you know, a lot of kids get special awards for things or whatever, outstanding, this and that. But a letter of recommendation, particularly from someone you volunteered with, is very important. If you came to volunteer with the Rotary, let's say, and you helped us with the duck race, I would see a part of you that your teacher wouldn't see. I'd see how you work with adults and how you handle it when there's kids around, and maybe it's a rainy day or a hot day or the ducks don't go where we want them to go. And I could see how Bryce handled himself when these
duck
happened.
hasn't gone where I want it to go ever. So.
Oh, there you go. So I think it's a matter of, again, a well-rounded. We don't ask for an essay. I know the DAR, I'm a member there, I know they ask for, I think it is for a scholarship, they ask for an essay. But I think if you take the time to really read the letter and look at the application, if you really think about what we're asking and you give us thoughtful answers, you're rising right up to the top there.
Now, I've always been curious because a lot of these scholarships do blind applications, and being that you're a New Milford organization and many of you own businesses that possibly you know someone, is your scholarship application a blind application when you guys look at it, or no?
Okay, that's a very good question, because many children of our Rotarians or friends of whatever, so we don't discourage a Rotarian's child. I mean, we've given scholarships to them. We feel that's great. However, we don't give it just because you're a Rotarian's kid. You have to follow the same. But no, we do put in the name. We have a review committee. It's usually 5, 6, 7, depends on how many applications we have. And as I started to say before, we wait. So let's say we work with 100 points total as an example. So we might say, well, 50 points are going to go towards your volunteer work, right? And then maybe 15 towards your academics, and maybe 15 towards your extracurricular. Okay, so now we're up to 80. So those other 20 points are for some of the individual things. It might be something we see on your application, but we might see on another application something completely different, but yet was outstanding in a way. So those extra 15 points can go along in there. And again, we do look at the family dynamic from, let's face it, from a fiscal point of view. Like I said, if you have a lot of 2 kids in college and now the last one. And I think that we try to see the whole picture of the child. And the family, as much as we can.
Now, when you get all these scholarship applications, I'm sure, does it take a long time for you guys to work on these? Because I know the Rotarians meet once a week.
Well, we don't do it at a regular meeting. That's a very good question also, because what happens, we ask for them by a deadline. And so they come in. As they come in, what I do is I post them on a Google Doc site, so our review team can access that. So as soon as one's there, I let them know. They can go and look at it. And then, we pick a day, not a meeting necessarily. We don't do it at a meeting. We pick a day and we meet maybe later in the afternoon or another day of the week, or a Zoom, which we used to have to do, which does still work well. And we talk about it. Everybody goes through and makes up their own sheet of rating. So we sit down and I would say, well, I give Bryce a 50, a whole 50 points for what he does in the community. And someone else says, well, I read through there, but I really only thought he was about a 35. So nothing against those. I'm just using this as an example, right? And so then we would talk about it because, there's a lot of information. Applicants sometimes give us more than we ask for. So it's a lot to read through and assess, because then you're going to go to another. So we talk about it and we hear what each of us has to say as to why. Why did I think you were worth the 50 points? Why didn't he? And we, so at the bottom of it all, after we discuss like that, you add up all of the points and we take that total as a way to start to call through. In the days past, before COVID, we used to get 30, I think one year we had 42 applications. Now recently we had 8, we had 10. So I don't know if it's because they don't see it. I put it out in the paper and stuff like that, but or maybe because we don't say how much the scholarship is for.
I don't necessarily think that matters. I just know a lot of students just didn't apply because they didn't want to take the time to go through it, which is very, very interesting because when I did it, it was like I looked at, first off, the Common App ones because you could apply to so many through there.
Oh, yeah?
But then it was like 21 scholarships on one application, and you just click whichever ones you want.
So you fill out one application.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you remember, but how would ours be different than that?
Yours, I think it just depends on whether the group wants to do it that way or not. I don't know how they get in contact with Ms. Schaefer or whoever it is at the Career Center, but yours would be more service-based, whereas these ones are just like, basic information about you, and
then you get your transcript.
Then they just get your transcript, and some of them had like one essay question, but not really. But it was very easy because I wrote like 3 different essays I had for 3 different like general types of essay questions, and I just reworded them for each of the applications I did, and that made it a lot easier.
I see.
Instead of writing a new essay every time.
Right. But in some cases, like with the DAR, they want you to write an essay to their topic.
Yep.
So I'll consider it. That's an interesting thing. I haven't seen the basic application in a long time. I should take a look at it. And maybe that would make it easier because we would like to see as many.
Exactly.
Of
more
course.
applications.
Of course, right. And particularly for those who really could use the funds, you know. So.
One of the things that I know a lot of people stress out about is the letter of recommendation that you were talking about, because some teachers write better letter of recommendations, and you guys don't even want teacher letters of recommendation. So now they're relying on other people that they maybe don't know as well as their teacher to write them a letter of recommendation. How much weight does that really carry in your application? Because a lot of people stress out about those.
Well, I'll give you an example, and I, as I said before, I don't know how teachers do it all, to be honest. I spend enough time with some grades occasionally, and I think to myself, oh my goodness, how does this teacher keep her head about her? So, but I can tell you that I get letters written by a teacher, and I could have 5 students. It's the same letter, and sometimes the name isn't changed. So I could get a letter that said, here's a letter for Susan Smith, and I could get the same letter that said, your name, or it could have your name at the top, but her name was still in the body. So you see what I mean? They're busy. I don't think that I don't think they're telling us anything that isn't true about you, great students. But to me, I'd rather the person you interacted, as I said, in the community. For instance, a lot of kids work, like say you go to Big Y and you get a job there for 6 months and your senior year. There's a lot of people there, managers, all different kinds of things, who would be happy to write a note. We don't need a whole huge diatribe. That's right. What we need to know is the basic. And I will say, when we get a letter from someone that a student has been working for or with in a volunteer capacity, like you, okay? So had a great amount of information about how you interact with your peers and adults and things like that. So your letter was a perfect example of the kind of thing we like to hear. So, no one's going to write a letter to say, don't give this kid a dime,
Exactly.
And if they did, we wouldn't want to, we would throw it out. And nobody does that. Yeah. So that's why I think it puts a burden, as you just said, on the teacher. And it might not have been a teacher that you had a particularly close or any kind of relationship with. So I already have your transcript. I can see what you did in the class. And as I said, we don't necessarily look for the person with the the
A
highest.
plus in every class. Yeah.
Correct, correct. AP classes are so much more common now.
Yes.
I can remember when it started and it was a few, and now it's everybody's, and which I think is great because you're getting more education, getting prepared.
The credits.
That's right, and yeah. So when you get to your college, you already got some credits going.
They're very helpful. One of my last questions is I wanted to ask you if you had any questions for me as a scholarship applicant to your scholarship and
Yes.
ultimate recipient.
Well, yes, I do. No, I think that when we ask you to come to lunch, so that we could meet you and have each one of you talk about where you're going to go to school and what your aspirations were, and then we hand you the check. And we had a good turnout. Unfortunately, one person had to go to work, which we understood. But was that a burden?
It was not a burden for me. It was right after school ended, so I hadn't started this job yet. And I get if some people are working, it could be difficult for them to make it. But I had a good time. I thought it was very easy to get to there, stuff like that. And I think the only thing that people were everyone else at the table I was saying was very nervous about the whole speaking part. Where like they have to tell. Like I'm not nervous with speaking, so I was like, I'll be fine. And I'm like, I'll go if you want me to go first. They didn't want me to go first, but they got nervous about that part. But I'm like, it was not that bad. And I got to talk to people that I'd seen before.
Right.
And so it was a very good experience overall.
Right, because I know some people there you didn't know. No, I thought every one of the applicants did a great job speaking. So what I ask you, what about, I realize, you're probably applying for more than one, maybe just one. Is there would you have an easier way, if I gave you the application, I said, here you go, Bryce, find one of the other applicants that you know or a friend and ask that, you mark this up. Tell me what you would change to get the information that I've just got through telling you that we really want to see.
For changes to your application, I don't think I would change anything because I think your application is very good for what the Rotary Club wants their applicant to be. You want to be very well-rounded, very involved in the community, and there's a lot of students that aren't involved in the community, and you don't want to have the burden of going through their applications when they only did no service or only one service compared to other students. So it's a very good application for what your group is looking for, and it really narrows down ahead of time. But even people that just don't look at the application, that's hard, and it's really hard to get students to look at applications when they don't want to do it. That's the problem.
Well, we used to say that we want, like, for instance, here's your extracurricular work experience, and there's a place to fill it out. And I find that because I realize nowadays you have a page made or 2 pages, and you can print out and send, email the extracurricular activities, because most of it, I think you probably can find it in the school. You might get it. It shows what you did in your freshman year, sophomore year, and that's all fine. We don't get upset if it's not written here, if you attach it. It's when a specific question that is important to us isn't answered.
Exactly.
Then we don't like that. But the last question is, would you say that the amount of our scholarship amount of money changes, as I said, depending upon our fundraising? And during COVID, of course, we couldn't do anything for a couple of years, so we're still kind of making up on that. But as an applicant, do you look at, say we don't say it because we don't know until we're ready to do it, but let's just say we said we have a $500 scholarship. Would that be too low an amount for the work?
It didn't deter me. I applied to as many scholarships as I could that I fit into what the category was looking for. Because if I got five $500 scholarships and it's still $2,500, like for the amount of time that you put writing into whatever essay you're going to give and whatever application you have to do, it really only takes an hour and a half maximum if you're starting your essay from scratch. And there's not many things you can do that you can make $500 in an hour. So if you look at it that way,
that's a very good point, Bryce.
I could work for a whole month or 2 months and make $500, or I could do an hour of writing down an application and I can make $500 possibly.
Do you think it would be better for Rotary because we don't really know, we could step back and say, well, let's do that. Let's figure it out. We have a pretty good idea before the end of the school year. One of the things you talk about how you're busy when school is out, we can't we don't want to give you we don't want to say to you, hey, you're a scholarship recipient because you don't know it yet.
Yeah, we have
from the
you
school.
have the awards night in
Yeah,
late
so
May.
we wait. But do you think it would be more attractive if we said, okay, our scholarship is $1,000?
I don't think so because I don't think a lot of scholarships don't post what they're. It's about 50-50 whether they post their money or not. And a lot of scholarships it changes. Like, oh, you could get a minimum of $1,000 or more, or a maximum of $1,000.
Well, I was thinking about that, not less than or whatever. Yeah.
But I think it just is the type of person that has to go out and like actually do the research and then write up the essays and stuff. I don't think the money number matters when you're doing it. I think it's more about the person that's doing it.
Okay, so we don't ask for an essay per se. So what if I said, write an essay of a minimum of 450 words or whatever, just be concise, and tell us why you think you would qualify for this Rotary Scholarship. Would you have found that to be off-putting or too hard?
I think for some people the essays are a little bit off-putting because it's like, okay, now I have to write an essay, then double check and make sure everything's grammatically correct because on the application you don't want any errors.
Well, that's true.
That looks bad if you
spelling mistakes.
Spelling mistakes.
But
and
we
everything.
do have spell check now.
But I think that puts off for some people. But I like having essays on there because it allows you to learn more about the applicant. If some essays I had to do was like writing about an experience that you had where you had a challenge you had to overcome, and I had to write about an experience and it really shows you the person's character.
Exactly.
So it's like doing an interview.
Exactly. So we might say, just tell us briefly what was the best part of your volunteer / whatever, or what did you find you learned in your job? Because we do see applicants who go to work, have been working for a long time, and they don't have time, or maybe they don't have an inclination to do sports so much. They're going to school, but maybe they need to raise funds for their education beyond high school. So we don't want to demerit there. And I think maybe I'll get the committee together and bring up that. And maybe instead of asking for letters of recommendation, say, tell us, and just be brief. Again, we have spell check, and if you use that, that's how I manage across my typos. But it would show us something else, and that might be a good thing. And then we can.
Yeah, because that's definitely different from a letter of recommendation. If your essay question is, tell us in 500 words or less an experience you had throughout the last 2 years of your life that made you a better person, or an experience you had in your community that you enjoyed.
I think we should get you on our scholarship committee, Bryce. You got it going on. Yeah. So well, anyway, that's what our scholarship's about. I do know about a couple other scholarships that committees I've been on, but the Pettibone. Did you say you applied for that one? Yeah. That one they do ask you to write an essay, right?
Yeah, you have to write an essay and you have an in-person interview.
Wow.
So the in-person interview is kind of crazy because it's a really long table and there's probably 8 people on this side and 8 people on this side, and I think it's Mr. Marandola all the way on the end. And they just start berating you with questions for about 10 minutes.
Really?
Yep.
Well, he's not scary, though.
He's not scary.
No.
He's not scary at all, but it's the people on the side. They're sitting next to you, and they all have as soon as you walk in, they all switch their sheet to your application. It's like, okay.
Oh,
it's kind of weird.
I guess. Well, you managed to do all right.
Yeah, I did
right?
okay. I'm a very good public speaker, so.
I think you are.
Thank
you. So, and the other thing I want to say to you and your fellow video people here doing this, I think that those of you who are involved in this type of thing with the youth agency, no matter when it is, whether it's when you're a freshman or when you're out of school or whatever like you, that it is one of the best things character-wise. I have never met anybody who's involved in this type of thing in here. And Miss Stacy knows that I've been here for lots of things, signs and all that. I just find that you're so much more mature in your conversations with adults, and as this will serve you very well as you go out in the world, because you're going to be an adult now. You're adulting when you're going to get into college, right?
Yep.
And that's good.
And thank you so much for telling us about the whole scholarship process, and I hope it makes it easier for other people to hopefully apply to your scholarship, but any scholarship in general.
I've learned some things, so I'm going to try to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.